Welcome to Common Sense with Dr. Ben Carson. I'm your host, Ben Carson. We're continuing our series on healthcare in America. In his second administration's first year, among President Trump's top priorities has been Make America Healthy Again, which involves taking a holistic view of human flourishing instead of a traditional view of healthcare, which primarily focuses on treating symptoms once we're sick. America is facing a chronic health crisis, but what can be done about it? How can the foods that we as taxpayers subsidize impact the health outcomes of our most vulnerable? These questions resonated with the American people, and in the first year of his new administration, President Trump has hit the ground running. This administration is laying the groundwork for revitalization, which is rooted in the real nutritious food grown by our farmers and ranchers. Here to talk about this progress and much, much more is someone who has played an instrumental role in the MAHA movement, and that's Secretary Brooke Rollins. I've known Secretary Rollins for a long time. We worked together in the first administration when she was head of the Domestic Policy Council and led strategic initiatives in the White House. She, of course, went on to found the America First Policy Institute, and now she is not only a wonderful friend and a great role model, but the 33rd Secretary of the U.S. Department of Agriculture. Welcome, Secretary Rollins. One of my very favorite people in the world.
Oh,
And
feel the same way.
I wanted to ask a whole series of questions, and one was at the end, but I said, I'm going to move that up to the beginning because there's so many young women who would like to hear the answer to this. I mean, you've done so much. You were the head of the Domestic Policy Council during the first administration of Trump. You formed the Texas Policy Council. Now you're head of agriculture, one of the largest departments, and you have 4 kids.
Yeah, 4 amazing kids.
And you've raised them extremely well, a wonderful family. I mean, what do you say to the young women who say, I got to choose between a high-powered career and a family? And it's impossible to do.
Yeah. Oh, I appreciate that question. And, you know, it's looking back now, because my kids now are 15, 17, 19, and 21. In a couple of weeks, they'll be 16, 18, 19, and 21. So I know we're a little bit at the back end, although I know you would advise never stop parenting. But to see the people they are now, the young men and women, and their love for their Lord, Jesus Christ, their love for America, their love for their parents. They are imperfect kids, obviously, but it is, at the end of the day, when it's my time, I'm very proud of all the things that we've done together, we'll continue to do. But that's all that really, really matters, are those kiddos. And my husband and I have worked really hard. Having said that, now looking back, what a joy to have been able to do this work for America. None of this has ever felt like a job. It's just been a passion and a calling. And then at the same time to be able to raise my family. And especially today, I think more than ever, I sort of felt like I was the first work from home pioneer. I left Governor Perry's office 20 years ago and was planning to stay home and raise a family, and decided to start this little think tank. Thought I'd do it for a year or so, Texas Public Policy Foundation. And instead, my first child came Luke, who's now a junior in college. And I told my board at the time, my bosses, I said, well, you know, I'll keep working, but I need to be home. And this was 20 years ago. And they were all for it. And that's sort of been the defining piece of all this, is you can put your kids and your family first, and also, you know, answer your calling and what God's called us to do, just like God called Moses in Exodus, you and I've talked about. So I just could not be more encouraged or inspired by the next round of moms coming up. I see a Riley Gaines just on Fox News with her, and moms are going to change the world, young moms especially. And so get in the fight, stay in the fight, answer your calling, and God will take care of all the rest.
Well,
He did for us.
That certainly gives us confidence that you're going to be able to carry out some of these amazing things that need to be done by the Department of Agriculture. You know, in the past, there have been lots of lofty ideals and thoughts about our food supply, about how we treat the poor and the indigent. And ideals have come and gone, but things haven't changed that much until now. All of a sudden, there's a real big push, and it seems to be even a bipartisan push toward bringing healthy foods back again. What do you think that this administration can do so that we don't end up like we have so many other times, not making progress?
You know, Dr. Carson, I feel like I should be interviewing you. The tables are a little flipped on me right now. It's confusing because you are the superstar celebrity leader here, but you know better than anyone. I mean, you were head of pediatric neurosurgery at Johns Hopkins for almost 3 decades, maybe even more than 3 decades. Your life's work, first in the actual medical field, but then pivoting into the public policy arena, and your servant's heart. I see it every day. You and I worked together almost 10 years, which is hard to believe. We've been in the same Bible study for years and years now, and that's been such a blessing to me too. So I think that, you know, now as you're advising part of the team, our nutrition team, it's really you and Bobby Kennedy and Marty McCary and Dr. Oz and me. It's kind of, we've got our little nutrition team.
And isn't this, it's certainly for me the first time I can remember so many government agencies working so closely together.
It's unprecedented. But that's what I was going to say. This is the magic of Donald Trump. You know, a lot of people who have negative things to say about him. He is very unconventional, but he also believes that he's only here for a short time. We owe no one anything except the American people.
Right.
Every decision we make has to be in their interest. And you hate to sort of cast such aspersions on those who went before us, and I don't mean to do that. But before Donald Trump, there was a lot more kind of hand-wringing, well, what is the lobby going to say about that? And what about the big donors? And where is the corporate crew on that? What is the media? What's the New York Times going to write? Like, even Republicans, I remember. You and I have been doing this a while, and Donald Trump just doesn't care. And so that has opened up this aperture at this moment in time for our country where we can actually make real change, make bold decisions that seemingly are very reasonable to normal people, but for Washington are historical.
Well, that's why I wanted to have you on this broadcast, because it's called common sense.
Yes. Which we're bringing back to Washington, but there isn't much of it here, as we know.
We're going to make it common once again.
That's right.
But one of the things that has come to the forefront, and there's been a lot of questions and criticism, the SNAP program and what it was designed for. And you've decided to do some different things with SNAP.
Sure have.
What have you decided?
Well, within the first hour of the first day that I was sworn in, and you remember, this is wild and crazy. They say, well, it could be tomorrow or it could be in 2 months. So you're just on standby, and you can't even walk into your building until you've been voted and sworn in. So I was on standby. We got a note, got a call on a Thursday night at 10 o'clock that the vote was going to be in the Senate Friday morning. My family got on a 5 a.m. flight. Thankfully, we live in the middle of the country in Texas. They got up here by 9 or 9:30. They made the vote. We then went over to Justice Thomas over at the Supreme Court for the swearing in, and then went to USDA. I finally got there, again, first time to walk in the building as the Secretary of Agriculture. And within probably 120 minutes, I had edited, approved, and signed a letter to go to all 50 governors that said, it's time to think about this program, SNAP, differently. SNAP is one of those, for your viewers, that it is federally funded, but it is state administered. And for those of us that are kind of conservative, federalist, constitutional driven, that's the genius of our founding fathers, that you want a small federal government. We're working to do that right now. Scale it back a little bit. You want the government closest to the people running things. So from my perspective, and SNAP is the biggest budget item, even though we're the U.S. Department of Agriculture, food stamps, SNAP is the biggest budget driver. So my directive request to all 50 governors, blue and red, was to please tell us how you can do this better, more affordably, and provide better food. Right. But it has to be done through the waiver system. So I've had about 18 states, blue and red, who we've already approved and signed, getting junk food, sugary drinks out of the SNAP program, which is sort of, again, common sense. Why would the taxpayer be paying for these major health compromising Cokes, et cetera, that then the taxpayers pay again on the back end on health care, especially when we're in a chronic disease epidemic right now, a lot driven by the diets of our country, fellow men and women. So that has been a very big move. And previously, not many waivers were ever approved, certainly not sought, but we're working with all of the states to do that. The flip side is on these dietary guidelines. What we announced last week, you and I together with Secretary Kennedy and Dr. Oz, you and I are headed to the White House in a minute to go be part of the Whole Milk for Healthy Kids signing, which is exciting. But it's so much bigger than just putting a new upside down triangle on the wall. It is a guide and a directive for all the federal nutrition programs. So we're going to be able to fundamentally begin to shift away from so much of what we feed our kids, especially our kids in the most vulnerable communities, that often school lunches or the SNAP program, that is the source that a lot of single moms, you and I both grew up with families that struggled. And so for a lot of the moms out there, this is gonna not only hopefully provide better and more nutritious meals for their kids across the board, but we're also going to be requiring the 250,000 SNAP retailers. So think of your local gas station. They accept the SNAP money. What are they stocking on their shelves that these moms and dads can buy for their kids? And right now, it's not great. So we're going to require, if you take a SNAP dollar, corner bodega, corner gas station, you have to double the amount of healthy food that you're selling. Frozen is fine, canned is okay, fresh is great, but all of the above. So hopefully we'll begin to see a real change soon.
Absolutely. And you've been rooting some corruption out of the SNAP program too.
That's the backside of this. And we all know just the amount of fraud. When a government gets as big as ours have, you know that 10, 20, 30, 40%, 40 cents of every dollar, 40% of the budget is likely going to fraud. But we didn't really understand it until we asked in SNAP all of the states to send us their data. Right. Of course, all the red states, the red Republican governors said, here's our data, please help us figure out how to do this better. Right. I think all but one of the Democrat governors said no. Big shout out to North Carolina, who sent us their data. So we're in litigation now with all the others that wouldn't give it to us. But the ones that did, we found almost 200,000 dead people getting these benefits. We found almost 500,000 people getting 2x the benefits that they should. We're already criminally prosecuting over 100 people on this, but it is a new day. We are rooting it out. We've gone pretty aggressively against states like Minnesota right now, which have been the worst of the worst, as we're seeing across the board. But we're also going to be going after a lot of the other states too, and making sure that the taxpayers are also protected as we move forward.
Well, this is an abbreviated session here because we've got a whole bunch of other things to do today. But on behalf of the American people, I want to thank you for jumping into the fray. You could be doing anything in the world you wanted to do, and you decided to do this.
Yeah,
and,
thank you.
We say that we're one nation under God. Mm-hmm. We have a lot of people trying to push God out. you're not doing that.
Yeah.
And a lot of people in this administration are not doing that. And I think that will be honored with great success. And we see it coming already.
I think that's right.
Is there any final message that you want to give the people out there?
You know, I was thinking, not our Bible study this morning, but the one last week. And we were in Galatians.
Right.
And we were talking about how Peter, who was a fisherman, who walked with Jesus, and really Jesus anointed, maybe too strong of a word, but kind of identified, you know, as one of the leaders to build his church. And then along came Paul, right? Saul, the tent maker,
Right.
who persecuted the initial Christians, killed Christians, until he obviously changed his heart after a transforming moment and went out into the world. So while Peter stayed back and built, Paul went into the world. And what we talked about last week, which I thought was amazing, was after I think 14 years, Paul came back to check in. And Paul and Peter, the beginning of Galatians, had a little bit of a knockdown, drag out. Paul said, "What are you doing? You can't divide Christians between the Jewish Christians and the Gentile Christians." I'm clearly paraphrasing here, but, and I don't know, Dr. Carson, it stuck with me for a lot of reasons. But one is that, you know, Paul and Peter were called for that moment, and obviously with God's hand on their shoulders, changed the rest of history after Jesus came down for his 32, 33 years. And on a much, 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 much smaller scale, I feel like the team that God has called today to make disciples of all the nations, to use our platforms to talk about him and the light and battling the dark and what that looks like. I feel it every day in this administration. I know we felt it in the first administration, but we were trying to...
We're paving the way.
Yes, exactly. We were trying to find the bathrooms and figure out who was fighting us, but it's all changed now. And we're getting so much done, and I give all the glory to God for that and for partners like you.
Well, we want to thank you on behalf of all the American people
Oh, thank
for
you.
what you've been doing.